Florence, my lovely. Shall we pick up where we left off? On chapter 24. That machine, that Eek machine, kind of looks like a gramophone, which is an old kind of music player. And the sound would come out of this funnel up here. Maybe that's where the ghosts' voices came from. Let's find out. Inheritance turned the lamp low and sat by the machine, a white-gloved finger hovering over the on switch. She had Memento's journal open before her. She read like a typewriter types, her eyes clicking steadily over each word until, with internal ding, she moved down to the next line. "Now," she whispered, "the journal says we flick the switch like so." They all felt as well as heard the machine turn on, a deep, low hum in the eyeballs and teeth, and a thickening of the air that made the hairs on their arms stand up. "That's just an electrostatic field," Phenomena said pointedly. The bulb on top of the Eek flashed on and then off again. There was a whir and a whisper as a fresh roll of paper slotted into place. "Grand work, Phenomena," Maelstrom grinned. "What now?" Aunt Inheritance squinted at the journal. "Just a moment," she said. "Aunt Memento does rather waffle on. Right here. We need to press this button here." She flicked another switch, "and the machine will scan for nearby spirits of our bloodline. Here in the house, there should be quite a fair few of them. The trumpet picks up and magnifies whispers from the spirit world." "Which is nonsense," said Phenomena. "And the seismometer detects vibrations on the otherworldly plane." "Preposterous!" "And the EMS-F senses ghost fluctuations in the electromagnetic field." "Rubbish! Aunt Inheritance, really?" Their arguing was interrupted by a loud ping from the machine and a flash from the bulb. "We've made contact," whispered Inheritance. We can ask questions now." She cleared her throat. "Is anybody there?" The bulb flashed once. Shenanigan felt the back of her neck prickle. "One flash means yes. Standard ghost protocol." Aunt Inheritance trembled with excitement. "Oh, I had so hoped to do this in the presence of the whole family. The first cross-plane reunion. We could have asked
2:47 p.m.
We could have asked Humdrum for her famous pierogi recipe, or Vex if she really did have a romance with the Queen." "Inheritance," warned Maelstrom gently. "Eyes on the horizon." "Yes, quite." She took a deep breath. "So, what should we ask first?" No one had a chance to reply because So, what should we ask first? Grammy's tired today. I had a long day at school and I didn't get enough sleep last night, and I need to focus on my reading. Let's try again. No one had a chance to reply because as soon as Inheritance spoke, the machine began to click rapidly, and from the small slot in its side, it spat out a strip of paper bearing large black letters. EARWEB. Earweb. Pardon? Inheritance looked startled. WARBEE. Warby? "Hang on," muttered Phenomena. "I just need to fine-tune the mechanism." She used the age-old scientific method of hitting it hard. Once. BEWARE. Beware. "Beware what?" asked Maelstrom, leaning forward. The machine hummed and clicked. With another cheery ping, it spat out death. In a secret chamber in Swift House, 5 members of the family sat around a machine that could contact the dead. The soft glow of the lamps cast their faces in dramatic shadow, gleaming off the dark wood and brass of the Eek as it spewed long ribbons of paper across the table. Aunt Inheritance fed it through her fingers, sighing. Beware, murder, death, murder, beware, death, murder, violence, death, beware. It seems to be hysterical, she mused. I wonder if all spirits are this highly strung. Uncle Maelstrom stroked his beard. Could we try to calm it down somehow? He patted the machine gingerly. There. Bodily harm, it spat. It's a glitch, said Phenomena. That or it's just doing what it was designed to do. Throw out sinister words at random to scare a gullible audience. Well, it's working, said Felicity, shivering. I'm a bit creeped out. Shenanigan scowled. She had really been looking forward to talking to a ghost. Trust Inheritance to find the least interesting one. Are you trying to warn us? Asked Inheritance. A member of our family has been gravely injured, another killed, and dead. Death. Murder. Beware. Death. Beware. Blood. Murder. 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 We could try switching it off and on again, suggested Maelstrom. Shenanigan lost her patience and prodded the machine. Oi! How did you die? The machine fell silent. Shenanigan, that's inappropriate, insisted Inheritance. Well, were you murdered too? Or did you just have an accident? Was it the plague? Was your body covered in boils? Was your sick green? You could have died in a war, I suppose. Or were you hanged? Or shot? Or stabbed? Or mauled by a large dog? Were you a victim of cannibalism? The eek clicked and pinged. Rude, it typed. That's enough, scolded Inheritance. I don't know much about ghost etiquette, but I know you should never ask a lady her age, and this seems about the same thing. It's a ghost, though, asked Felicity. The bulb on the top of the machine lit up once. Yes. All right. If it can't talk properly, we'll have to try yes or no questions instead. Inheritance took a deep breath, resting her fingers lightly on the table. We thank you for speaking with us, Spirit, she quavered. Do you know who we are? The bulb flashed once. Yes. Excellent. Then you know what has happened in this house over the last few days? Yes. Oh, please, it's just flashing at random, muttered Phenomena. Do you know who attacked Aunt Schadenfreude? Shenanigan jumped in. This was taking far too long. Yes. Did the same person kill Gumshoe and Pamplemousse? Who was it? She asked excitedly. The machine whirred and clicked and then began to spew out paper once again. Shenanigan seized it with trembling fingers. Murder, death, murder, beware. She sat back sighing. I think we've upset them. We should ask them something else, said Felicity. What about the treasure? Maelstrom stroked his beard. Does it know where Vile's hoard is? Do you know where Vile's hoard is? He asked in a loud voice as if dead and deaf were the same thing. One flashed from the antique bulb. Aha! Well, where then? A click, a whir, a ping. Look under house. Under the house, exclaimed Inheritance. That narrows things down significantly. Oh, please, Spirit, where under the house? How would it even know that? Interjected Phenomena. You're just looking for patterns and nonsense. Oh, there's a bunch of gibberish babbled out the machine. I don't know if you can see it down there at the bottom of page 235. It's just a bunch of symbols and strange symbols strung together. So the machine maybe is confused. Look at them all sitting around it. That's a great picture. Is it swearing at us? Cried a scandalized Felicity. No, it's spouting gibberish. Shenanigan had thought Phenomena was just being a spoilsport, but now she saw that her sister was genuinely agitated, chewing on her hair again. We're wasting time with this, asking the machine when we should be using our brains. Who are we even supposed to be talking to? None of you even asked that. Shh! It's trying to type its name, cried Maelstrom. Is it trying to spell Schadenfreude? Asked Shenanigan. She's not even dead yet. Besides, that's not how you spell Schadenfreude. It has a CH like charlatan. No, it doesn't. Shh. Well, it can't be, the name can't be shh, can it? Can we please all come? Murder, 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 murder. An awful wailing started, a noise of horror and grief that made Felicity and Phenomena clutch each other in shock. Shenanigan leaned over the table and grabbed at the bulb. It flashed in alarm. Just tell us who's doing that, she shouted at the eek, whirring furiously. Murder! I don't know why you're asking me. Murder! You'd better be asking the cat. You'd be better off asking the cat. Murder! I'm just trying to have a pleasant afterlife. Shenanigan thumped hard on the top of the machine, making Aunt Inheritance squeal. Tell us, she shouted. Tell us now, or I'll rip out all your wires and use them to string a harp, which I will then play very badly. There was a screech and a grind, and Shenanigan's blow must have broken apart whatever Phenomena had fixed, because the machine just began to spit out sentries horde, murder, cat's dishonor, renderer, armored, air, sundercut, air's undercut, certain, hours, murdered, and more strings of nonsensical letters over and over and over. Finally, it let out one last sad whine and stopped. But the wailing did not, because it wasn't coming from the machine, wasn't even coming from within the room. It was coming from elsewhere in the house, and it was loud enough to rattle the canvas of the secret room. Shenanigan and the others leapt to their feet, skidding on Aunt Inheritance's map. Tearing out into the corridor towards the source of the noise, they flung themselves in a tangle of legs to the grand staircase, where once again an audience gathered. Only this time there was no body, just Cook, wailing. Maelstrom ran forward, and she almost collapsed onto his steadying mast of an arm. What is it? What's happened? It was too much, groaned Cook. She was too badly hurt. Shenanigan went cold, and she saw her fear reflected in Uncle Maelstrom's careworn face. Cook, is she? He couldn't finish. Yes, she sobbed. She's gone. Properly this time. Arch Aunt Schadenfreude is dead. I wasn't prepared for that. And that's the end of the whole part, because it's in different parts. So we're going to start part 3. We got to keep reading. Holy moly. Chapter 25, a rehearsal. It was a gray, buttoned-up morning in early May, and the Swifts were in the middle of a funeral. Abandoned cars lined the gravel driveway like honor guards, gleaming dully in the weak sun. Every so often a shower of rain would rush overhead to see what all the fuss was about, and the crepe bows and ribbons the family had hung drooped wetly in the damp. In a way, Arch Aunt Schadenfreude's timing couldn't have been better. She could have appreciated the efficiency of dying while everybody was already present. It saved writing invitations. There weren't nearly enough folding chairs for all the guests, and Phenomena and Felicity had to drag almost every seat in the house outside into the drizzle. Mourners sat on kitchen stools and chintz sofas, leather armchairs, and the chaise lounge from the library. That, Shenanigan knew, Aunt Schadenfreude wouldn't have liked. In fact, she wouldn't have liked a great many things. Despite all their rehearsals, Shenanigan, Phenomena, and Felicity had not been permitted to organize the ceremony according to their aunt's instructions. Instead, strange relatives, relative strangers had swooped in with their own ideas of how to do things the proper way. The sisters were not allowed to help carry the coffin. They had not been asked to decorate, and as a result, the flowers were all wrong. The mere sight of them had made Felicity burst into tears. Someone had even mentioned the possibility of a hymn being sung, and that was the last straw for Shenanigan, who knew that little irritated her aunt more than lackluster singing. The human voice is nothing but a fleshy bagpipe, she told Shenanigan again. See, I'm trying to read too quickly. It is not a backpack. She watched the slow, twisting procession enter the graveyard from her lonely perch up in the apple tree. From there, she could have swung down and dropped into the open grave. Mourners settled into their seats beside her. Beneath her, Felicity, Phenomena, Maelstrom, and Cook were in the front row. Shenanigan could see her own seat beside Phenomena, reserved by a card with her name lettered in tidy cursive. The writing looked familiar. From time to time, people looked up towards where she sat and tutted in disapproval, but Shenanigan knew she could not come down. She was supposed to be sad, but she wasn't. She was furious, and underneath that fury was an emptiness so deep and dark she was scared to look into it. If she were to go down and sit in her seat and be forced to be part of a funeral her aunt would have hated, all that anger would bubble over and she would do something dreadful. I'm sure Aunt Schadenfreude wouldn't want us to be sad, began Candor, rubbing anxiously at his hands. In Schadenfreude's absence, he had ended up as celebrant as well as doctor, while Inheritance stood to his left, as pale and wrung out as a used dishcloth. Of course, Aunt Schadenfreude wanted us to be sad, Shenanigan fumed. Oddly, the only people who understood that were Atrocious and Peak. Atrocious wore a black velvet suit and cape. Peak wore that, and Atrocious was near invisible beneath a volcanic eruption of black lace. They sobbed and wailed theatrically, clutching at each other. They were very well-practiced mourners. Flora and Fauna stood at the back of the gathering, and though they were dressed identically, Shenanigan could easily tell who was who. Fauna had been crying silently and steadily for hours, her eyes red-rimmed. Flora had her arms crossed over her chest, her mouth a thin, livid line. 10 minutes into the eulogy, she rose and stalked off toward the house, hands in her pockets. No one tried to stop her, and when the mourners stood to sing, Shenanigan slipped back down the tree and away from the graveyard, snatching the place card from her chair as she went. A funeral is supposed to be a way to say goodbye. You look inside yourself and you find a place to put your grief, not somewhere hidden, not the top shelf or the back of a cupboard, but maybe by a window where it can catch the light. Shenanigan couldn't do that. So many things were wrong. Aunt Schadenfreude's gravestone had been brought out, ready to be put in place. On it was carved her definition, Schadenfreude, noun, the enjoyment felt at the misery of others. That was especially wrong. Cook had said Aunt Schadenfreude put on her iron collar when she became matriarch. Shenanigan wondered who her aunt had been before Aunt Gracious had picked her to take on the responsibility for her entire family. If Schadenfreude had wanted that responsibility, or if it had felt like cold metal closing around her throat. For as long as Shenanigan had known her, Aunt Schadenfreude had never enjoyed anyone's misery but her own. Shenanigan's grief was beginning to transform Aunt Schadenfreude from scowling nemesis into scowling but sympathetic hero. Shenanigan had sworn her revenge when her aunt was merely unconscious. Now she was dead, She pledged it once more. She would not rest until she found the person who had done this to her aunt, to her family, and made them pay for it. On Vile's monument leaned a figure in a long coat, their head turned to follow Flora trudging across the lawn. For a second, Shenanigan's eyes played a cruel trick on the rest of her, and she thought she recognized her aunt hunched over in the rain. But then the figure turned, and even behind her large pair of dark glasses, Shenanigan recognized Daisy. When she saw Shenanigan, she lifted her hand hesitantly in a half wave. Something about it was terribly sad, and if Daisy were on a small boat, as if Daisy were on a small boat drifting out to sea, wondering whether she had gone too far to be seen from the shore. The rain grew heavier, dripping off Vile's nose and turning the grass to mud. Daisy put her hand down. She turned and followed Flora into the house. This is not where I expected our story to go today. Bummer. All right, let's stop there near the bottom of 244. Gotta write that down so that I know where to pick up. We're gonna start again on the bottom. Right, because see, there's a little break in the story there. That little squiggly means it's time to take a little break. Perfect for our reading. All right, my lovely birthday kisses. Until we read again.